Welcome back to Carlo Perusa MMA. I am Carlo Perusa. I'm with a special guest today. He is Mr. El Matador, Emmanuel Sanchez. He is taking on Daniel Salas next weekend, XFC 50. Emmanuel, how are you doing today, man? Getting in some last-minute training before the big contest?
Man, I'm always training. If anybody follows me on the social media platforms, and just those who really, know me in my life, I don't do training camps. I'm always in camp. You should always be ready to fight. Fighters should always be ready to fight. And that's me, man. I'm no stranger to taking fights on a week, 2 weeks notice. Days, I'm not sure yet. Depends on the on the kind of the fight. But I haven't done that yet. But you never know. Who's to say? I might have something in the future. You never know. 4 days notice or something like that. But either way, I'm always ready to fight, man. So I'm always in the gym. I'm always grinding, and I'm always outside of grinding and for fight preparation. The way I see it is, man, my body is always at its physical best. I may not physically look the best if I'm enjoying pizza and burgers, you know what I mean? But I'm always ready to fight. I'm always ready to go 3 rounds, 5 rounds, no rounds, just to whoever quits. Let's do it.
Emmanuel, you've been competing in the world of combat sports professionally for well over a decade here. How did you get your start into this crazy world of mixed martial arts?
Oh man, I just the second MMA kind of went mainstream, I should say, because you're talking about early UFCs, of course, Royce Gracie, Ken Shamrock, in the early '90s, when there was no rules and weight classes and all that. Like at that time, I didn't care. I was like, well, yeah, that's pretty barbaric. No one really thought about fighting at that time, right? Or doing it at that time, unless they were really hardcore. So I was a little more into boxing as a kid, and then some wrestling. But then once I got out of high school, it was like, all right, what am I going to do with my life? I don't know. And UFC got onto Spike TV. And it was already pretty deep in, like 4 or 5 seasons, 6 seasons of The Ultimate Fighter in. And the more and more I just watched all these fighters and heard their backgrounds, their stories, I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And the one who stood out to me the most was George St. Pierre. Having no wrestling background, no striking background other than karate, and being able to get into mixed martial arts, it didn't look like it. It looked like he'd been striking his whole life and grappling his whole life with what he was able to go out there and showcase every time he fought. He showcased amazing grappling, amazing striking, and that he was a complete, well-rounded fighter. And I just kind of fell in love with the idea that if he could do it, I could do it. And likewise with all the other great fighters that I grew up watching, and that's still what I'm pursuing to this day. Wanting to showcase that I have some of the best grappling in the world, some of the best striking in the world, conditioning in the world, fight IQ in the world, all the above.
From when the UFC was first really picking up steam in 2005, 2006 with Ultimate Fighter to now in 2024, the world of mixed martial arts is at a totally different area. It's totally different. It's more culturally accepted now. So many people watch it. When you were first engaging in your first couple amateur fights, pro fights, do you have any crazy fighting horror stories, maybe unsafe fighting conditions, mystery opponents, bad medicals, anything crazy in the early days?
Yeah, I've had that. One of my earlier amateur fights, some guy had taken it on like hours notice or something like that. Sometimes that kind of stuff still happens depending on where you're at with the commissions and states, like where you're fighting. But I had fought somebody who had just taken the fight on very short notice because I had like a couple guys pull out, and they got somebody, and he was skilled, he was good, very tough, great fighter. I ended up winning, but yeah, I noticed. I was like, oh, that was a little far fetched. That was interesting, but I'm glad he accepted. I'm glad we were still able to fight. And I mean, he didn't even have to cut weight. I remember I was warming up in the locker room, and they told me they had found somebody. They had brought him into the locker room. They were weighing him, and he was like 174, I believe. And I'm like, well, I already cut weight, and I weigh about the same. Like I already rehydrated and replenished. I'm about the same, so it doesn't matter. It's not like he's, you know, this huge guy or whatever his experience is. I didn't know. I didn't care. I'm just like, we got ourselves a fight. That's all that matters. And yeah, we did it. And that was also back then before they, commissions and didn't do blood work and had the history of opponents and stuff like that. And then one of my pro fights, this really pissed me off. I had already wrapped my hands, had my own gloves. So I was planning to fight with my own gloves that I brought. And then after the intermission, the president or the commissioner, whoever he was hosting the fights, he said all pro fighters will be wearing their gloves, their sponsored gloves. And I had to hunt somebody down somewhere in this little arena, wherever we were out in the boonies, almost Canada, where I was at. No phone service. It was like 9 hours up, north of Washington. That's all I know. So we were out in the middle of nowhere in the woods with the Sasquatches and, Bigfoots and stuff like that. And I find somebody, got the gloves, but they were only medium gloves, so I could barely make a fist. I remember because the way I wrapped my hands, and they're newer gloves. It was so hard to break in, and I remember fighting that way. Like, wow, I could barely make a fist. I was pissed. It kind of affected me a little bit mentally. Still ended up winning, but still, I was like, yeah, that pissed me off. And yeah, once we won, I looked at my team. I was like, let's get the fudge out of here. And I was like, man, I was pissed. But I had gotten a submission bonus in the mail. Guy sent me like $50 or something like that, so that was nice. All the money I made for that too was for my friend for gas money. So I was like, good times, man, good times. Nothing but great stories, in the MMA world.
You've had a very lengthy career in Bellator. I think 20 fights in Bellator. What drew you to that promotion?
Well, of course, everyone wants to go to UFC. Everybody wants to fight UFC. Even those who aren't in the UFC or are in the UFC, once they leave, then, of course, want to go back, etc. Right? Everybody's dream goal is to go in the UFC. And so I've been in talks with the UFC for a while, actually, going all the way back to about 2015, 2014, 2015. I had never thought I'd, fight for Bellator, because what Bellator was previously with the very first president, I didn't like the tournament format. It's kind of like what PFL has now, only structured very differently. The deals, and I just didn't like it. As much as a fan I was of it, and the fighters, obviously the Pitbull brothers, Eddie Alvarez at the time, Pat Curran, Joe Warren, a lot of other great fighters, right, that I enjoyed watching, but I didn't, of course, my mind was still like all UFC. But then once Scott Coker had taken over, and my management, coaching team, everyone at the time all decided like, hey, wow, yeah, Scott Coker's taking over. He's changing this whole format, and I think it'd be something really great to go for. They're offering a good deal as well too. I started on a small developmental deal, and then here we are today. He rose all the way up to fighting for a world title, getting to a Grand Prix, fighting all these other great fighters that I've fought, and everything that I've been blessed with, man. Travel the world, being able to do what I love to do for a living, and to here we are today, to now pursuing to get to where I want to get to.
During your Bellator career, one of those fights, a guy you just mentioned, Mr. Pat Curran, you fought him early on in your Bellator career. The contest didn't go the way you wanted, but what was the takeaways from that? Did you learn anything about yourself, maybe make you a better fighter after that contest?
Oh, yeah. I tell guys all the time. What made that so interesting, that was one of the first times I'd taken a fight on short notice, and I didn't cut the weight properly, so that was my fault for just how I handled that leading up into it. And then obviously the 18 days, 2 weeks more or less, that I had taken it, we had trained together as well too before the fight. He had actually come up to Rufus Sport in Milwaukee to get training in, because he was scheduled to fight Goichi Yamauchi. And we're like, oh, okay, yeah. Everyone was on the same page that like, oh, okay, it's okay that he comes up to train. Him and I are in two very, different positions in our career. I'm just up and coming. He's obviously a former champion. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh yeah, it'll be a long time before we ever cross paths. And sure enough, like, his opponent pulls out. The next morning I get a phone call saying, do I want to take this fight? And I'm like, damn it, I was just training with this guy. Like, oh man. So that threw me off a little bit, because we had gotten some sparring rounds in, and in my mind, I was like, okay, wow, I'm facing a former two-time champ right now. I'm sparring with a former two-time champ right now. I'm seeing his skill level. I'm seeing how he is. And well, the fight obviously went totally different. So just because of how something goes in training, I think this is what all young fighters should know too. It doesn't make anything of a difference of how it actually going to be when you enter into the ring with them. I still believe I can beat him, but that's all in the past. That's all history. I've grown from that. I've learned from that what I've needed to, grow and learn from and evolve from. And yeah, it's only made me that much of a better fighter. So I'm grateful for it.
Another popular fight of your career in your Bellator days, definitely your victory over Daniel Salas. You're able to pick up a victory in round 3, triangle choke, first 2 minutes of the third round. Walk me through that finish. What were you seeing? And did you think you could land maybe a sub going into the contest?
I'm always looking for the finish. Going into that fight, it was crazy, man. No one knows I was actually injured, and I never told anybody. And there was a lot of changes that I made in my camp: nutrition, training, mindset, all of the above. Right, I had a lot of other stuff going on, but I still felt very physically and mentally prepared to, like, all right, let's go out and let's handle business. And I'm in there with them, and I'm like, okay, wow, this is the former champ right now, and like, yeah, I'm holding my own. Like he'd gotten some takedowns, he'd hit me with some elbows, but I definitely felt like, all right, wow, like, okay, like I got this. The whole time I was like, I'm in control. And when I was winning all these scrambles, and I noticed, I was like, wow, he's wrestling a lot. I don't know, like I guess how his mindset, if he was looking for the finish or if he was looking to just dominate, control, how he was looking to get the win. I was like, all right, I just can't let him dictate the pace of the fight and where the fight goes. So once I felt that I knew, I was like, oh, okay, I got this now. It's in my favor. I'm winning these scrambles and I'm going to break him. I felt like I did that. And then he would leave an opening. And sure enough, out of all those scrambles again, especially after that first round when I rolled for the knee bar, I was like, oh, okay, now I just got to know where I can get him. And sure enough, I shot up the triangle choke. I had been working a lot on the triangle choke, not just in training, but like in previous fights that I had gotten triangle chokes, but also missed the triangle choke. And now finally I was like, man, I just finished a former champion. So let's go. I'm ready to go. Prove like why I'm one of the best in the world.
Obviously, if we're going to talk about your Bellator career, we got to talk about your 2 contests against Pitbull Patricky. We're able to headline some events, very big fights, pay-per-views. Unfortunately, it didn't go the way you wanted, but what was that experience like, fighting a guy like that, dealing with the media, dealing with all the lights?
That doesn't really matter, man. I've never really let any of that kind of stuff get to me. The only thing that's, matters to me is the man standing across the cage from me. That's always like my main focus. I never let myself get lost into anything else or let anything else cloud my mind, because what's my mission? What's my objective? What's my focus? Defeating my opponent. That's it. I feel like that's my message too for younger fighters. A lot of other people maybe who watch this and think that of course, there's a lot of other things that could cloud our minds or try to distract us or try to, or maybe that's what people think, that's like, oh yeah, we must be thinking about all this other stuff that what goes on in the MMA world, I guess. But no, we don't care, dude. Like, the only thing that matters is going out there, whooping that guy's ass, not getting our ass whooped, right? Intelligent defense, fighting our best, and getting our hand raised. Like, that's it, plain and simple. And looking back on it, like, he's such a great fighter. Like, obviously, Bellator's best, one of the best featherweights of all time. I still believe I can beat him, but that's all right. That's in the past, and that's history as well, too. But I'm grateful for those fights. I'm grateful for him, his camp, his team, his family. I've gotten to know them very well over these years. It's very surreal because I grew up watching him early 2007, 2008. Like I said, early Bellator, very early on, what the Pitbull brothers are known for. and then having shared the octagon with him twice, like, yeah, it's pretty crazy, but it's only made me that much more of a better fighter, and for that, I'm grateful.
Now let's talk about a little bit about the contest here in a couple of weeks. Taking on Daniel Salas, XFC 50, Lakeland, Florida. Overall, what do you think of Daniel as an opponent?
So I was originally scheduled to fight someone else, and he takes this fight on short notice. Like, thankfully, I got the switch, I think, in a day or maybe a few hours. I was like, what? It was just, boom, new opponent. And I was like, okay, completely different, I'd say, changes styles, but I think it's a better fight. He brings a lot to the table. He's got a lot of experience. He's fought a lot of other great fighters as well too, whether here in stateside or overseas. And he's tough, man. He's Mexican, so that's how Mexicans do it. They love to come and throw down. So yeah, this is definitely going to be a great fight. But I love it though. Guys like this bring out the best out of me. A lot of fights that I've previously had over the years, whether it be early on or whether it was, 2-3 years ago. A lot of guys, they all taught me something about myself, about them, about mixed martial arts. But you can definitely tell, like, it may sound cliche, but it's what the Diaz brothers say as well too. Did you know who comes to fight? And I want to fight guys who come to fight, not guys who want to come and kind of make it a grappling match. There's a lot of guys that, they're not fan favorites. They're not stars. They're not exciting. And maybe they'd be better at just going out and doing grappling matches. But what do fans want to see when they come and pay for a fight, man? Whether it be on the pay-per-view or whether it be buying a ticket and going and seeing this fight live. They want to see two guys go out there and leave it on the line and throw down and fight. And so that's one thing I know about myself is that I'll die before I ever become a boring fighter. I've never been booed in my life, and I never will be, because I don't go in to lay and pray, and I don't go in to fight safe. I fight smart, I fight intelligent, but I come to fight, I come to finish, and I come to win, and that's it.
When I was first looking at this XFC card, it caught my eye right away. I mean, it is loaded for a regional show. I mean, you got Tim Johnson headlining, Pearl Gonzalez, Hannah Goldie, yourself. I mean, a bunch of high-level guys, multiple Bellator guys, multiple guys who have fought on the UFC in a regional show that's designed to try to help guys get to that level. What do you think of it? Are you happy with the promotion so far? Are you excited to be on a card like this?
Absolutely. Oh, man, I've been waiting to fight for quite some time now. Because of the sale now, like, I'll share this as well too. A lot of people don't know this. Because of the sale with Bellator and PFL and how the landscape on how that's changed now and everything's going, I as well too could have fought my way back in or sat around and wait to get another fight. But of course, nature, I'm getting older, so I don't want to sit around and wait. The past 2 years, I've only fought once, and I want to be active. So seeing as a lot of cards were getting filled, opponents didn't want to fight, and then looking for fights elsewhere as well too. A lot of guys didn't want to fight this well too. This next generation, some guys, they talk about they want to fight, and there's fights, and then they turn them down, or they want easier fights. I don't believe there's any such thing as easy fights. I don't believe in calling guys scrubs or bums. Anyone, right, at any given time can get their hand raised, can beat you on every given day. So you always got to stay on top of your game to go out there, to do it to them, make sure it never happens to you. A lot of guys, I think, are overconfident, underprepared, or entitled as well too, spoiled and entitled, thinking they deserve a UFC pay-per-view title fight right now, like everybody, of course, wants to be like Conor McGregor, Sean O'Malley, and these guys that are already at that level. Like, man, you have to earn that. Like, and on top of that, you got to fight your way to earn that. Like, what did you do to deserve that, let's say? And so, yeah, I'm not about that. I don't care about any of that stuff or let myself get lost in any of that stuff. I know Cowboy Cerrone, man. I'm naming all these legends and all, my favorite fighters, anybody, anywhere, anytime. And you should always be ready to fight. So when that phone call comes, that text message, that email, boom, gets sent to you, it's like, all right, it's either a yes or a no. And if you say no, they won't call you again, right? They like, all right, we'll give it to someone who does want it and who is going to say yes. So That's why I always believe in staying prepared, because the greatest opportunities always come from saying yes. I mean, this goes back all the way to Kenny Florian losing to Drew Fickett in front of Dana White. And he still was able to make it onto the Ultimate Fighter, and Drew wasn't. That's amazing. Even though he lost, he took the fight. Dana liked what he saw, and boom, put him in the Ultimate Fighter. And there's stories on stories of how many guys have done some amazing, exceptional things because of just the ability to say yes and go out there and throw down, and that's what we do.
What you're talking about, the mindset of staying ready, training year round, and then being an all-around fighter, not having just one skill set, being fast in all the different areas of mixed martial arts. This is something that has also grown with the times of MMA. 15, 20 years ago, you didn't see everyone, one, being an all-around fighter, two, training year-round, being ready for a fight on 2 weeks' notice. When did this get instilled in you? Did you get this early in your career? Were you taught this mentality? When did you really see how important this will be for the future growth and development if you want to be in the sport for a long time?
Well, I guess since the day I started, man, like a lot of my amateur fights came pretty quick right after my first one, which was November of 2008. Then I had my second fight, Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2009. And then 2009, I was like 4 fights. So it was like back to back. You know what I mean? Just racking up wins, racking up fights. Same thing, 2010, like 2-3 fights right off the bat in the first 5 months of the year, all the way leading up to till I made my pro debut, actually. And I knew, I'm guilty of in between fights at times. After a fight, you win, right? You want to celebrate. So you max out on food, and the number on the scale goes up a little higher than it should be. So I'm not perfect in that sense. No one is. I don't believe. If they are, then well, God bless them. They're blessed, not letting their weight get too heavy. But I'm also in that category as well too. Even though I enjoy myself food, that's what I like to do for fun, is eat. Still train. That means you got all the energy in the world to stay in the gym, man. Going all the way back to boxing, to jiu-jitsu, to wrestling, and obviously MMA, putting it all with all combat sports, all these great combat sport athletes, and even a non-combat sport. Let's go to basketball, right? Kobe, Michael, LeBron. There is no off season. They always saw themselves as by staying in the gym. You want to be the best ever. You want to be one of the best to ever do it. You want to break records. You want to make history. You want to be a legend. You have to be different. You have to stand out. You have to be odd to be number one. You have to do what others are not willing to do, right? So you can accomplish what others won't. I feel like that's been set in stone for quite some time now for all the greatest that we know as athletes, historical figures, even, we could say, not even just as an athlete, but someone who's went on to go do amazing things in their profession, what they're passionate about, in their craft. And that's something that I want to leave behind as well too, because I know, again, like nature, right? All my favorite fighters that I grew up watching don't fight anymore, or they're closer to, very one fight a year being done, and because they've accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. So that's what I'm looking to go out there and do, and then be able to share that for the next, young generation as well too. It's like, if you can do this, man, but if you want to do this, this is what it takes. And it's it's very easy to just say it. Everybody could say it. They want to be this guy, this champion, this is the best fighter in the world. But are you willing to do what it takes, every day of your life? Because especially as a fighter, we don't have off seasons. We don't have, it's basketball season, football season, this and that. No, we fight. You never know. You get another fight like that. It's by always staying ready, by always staying in the gym, by always working at your craft, sharpening your skills, bettering yourself as a martial artist. Man, there is no limit to how far you can go with this and how much you can accomplish when you just stay in the gym and you believe in yourself, you work hard, you take care of yourself, and keep your mind right, keep your grind right.
Yeah, you train at one of the, I would say maybe most historic, most popular, most well-known gyms in the world, Rufus Sport, and obviously Coach Duke Rufus. You've had some great guys train with him over the years. Pettis brothers, Macy Barber, Gerald Mearshart, Bilal Muhammad. The list goes on and on. What do you like training with those guys, and how do you think it enhances your game?
Well, I've actually switched camps now, but we're all still tight. I still keep a close relationship with everyone that I've trained with over these years. And Macy's at Alpha Male now. Gerald is at Killcliff. I am down in Houston, Texas with my guy Rafi on stats. So another, former Bellator champ, Bellator standout. And I still have lots of family and friends in Milwaukee. So when I go and visit my family and friends in Milwaukee, I get to see all the guys. And then whenever I go to Vegas, because Anthony actually lives in Las Vegas now. But, man, having all that experience, all that knowledge that's been passed down to me, not just, of course, because of Coach Duke, but all the other great fighters as well, too, that help mold the younger fighters like me, and then that we did that for the others as well, too, only catapulted us all to be where we are now. Our knowledge of the game, and man, I'm so grateful for it. Like, you can't put a price on that. That's priceless.
All right, Emmanuel, last question. The perfect world. What goes down April 12th when you get in there, XFC 50, Lakeland, Florida?
In a perfect world, first round finish, but that's always what I'm aiming for, man. Like, I know I'm a crowd pleaser. I fight to finish. It's in my blood. It's in my DNA. That's what I'm always hunting for. I always look to put on the most exciting fights and to walk in, right, exactly the way I plan to walk out. Healthy, injury-free, likewise for my opponent. But me with a hand raised, all glory to God. But no matter what, we know we're going to go out and put them away. So, and on to the next one.
Well, Emmanuel, thank you for talking today, man. I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.